Welcome back to another episode of Tooth and Claw Podcast. We have our wildlife biologist and Dior model, Wes Larson, with us.
Yeah.
I hate that intro.
I love it.
And then we got our beefy boys, Mike Smith and Jeff Larson. I'm Jeff Larson.
Here comes the beef.
Packing it on.
The beef.
That lady in that Wendy's commercial in the 80s.
Where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
We know where the beef is. It's right here on
We
Tooth and
got
Claw
it.
Podcast. Yeah.
I was thinking about something funny today.
What was
Have
it?
you ever had like a standoff of just being stubborn with someone that just like gets you into a really interesting situation?
Yeah, like the three of us have done that so many times.
Daily.
I was just thinking with our cousin Brent once in a roundabout. We like went in a circle in the roundabout for 2 hours.
I remember that.
Because like he just kept doing it and I wasn't going to tell him not to. Like one car even like followed us for half an hour and they then like gave up. And like
2
if
hours.
a cop saw us doing that, could they just be like, hey, stop
For sure.
driving in circles?
Yeah.
But like it's not
Without a
illegal.
doubt.
You're not breaking. Maybe. I don't think that's a law,
Yeah, but-
right? You can do that.
Cops will enforce things that aren't laws all the time.
Like we almost ran out of
I mean,
gas.
I would agree with him in that case, to be honest.
Like we were going to run out of gas and I was like, dude, let's go. And I lost. Like he would have gone
Yeah.
until we ran out of gas.
That's the Brent we know and love.
It does. That's very Brent. Because when we play
Yeah.
Uno too, he'll do this thing where he'll deal cards. Like he'll take a chunk of cards and then he deals until he lands on like the perfect amount. So if like he doesn't end on him with that chunk of cards, then he pulls out another chunk of cards. And by the time he's done dealing, you have like 60 cards in your hand and there's like 4 left in the deck. It's so annoying. Ugh. But, you know, I respect the hustle.
It's great.
Yeah. I just got back from Yellowstone. I had a pretty good couple weeks there. Saw like,
Dude, your video went viral.
yeah, that's like my first truly viral video, I think. Do you guys want me
Coyote
to tell
Peterson just started following us. I
Who
hope
we
he
love?
doesn't listen to everything.
We've only said nice things on this podcast. I know I saw that and I was like, oh. Yeah, do you guys want me to tell the story of that video really quick?
Yeah.
Just since-
Yeah. I wasn't listening the first time.
Yeah, I called both of you because I was very excited. Jeff picked up, Mike didn't.
I did not.
I was guiding in Yellowstone and we were staying in Cook City, which is on the northeast entrance of the park. And it was late in the evening. My group was I was done for the day essentially, but I had to go fuel up the car. But Mike, you understand this. Jeff, I think you do too. I'd spent the entire like week and a half up to that point, like being on and having to talk all the time and be like really cheery. And so when I drove out that night, I realized like, oh, I've got this car all to myself. I can kind of do whatever I want. And the music just sounded really good. And it was a beautiful evening. And I was really enjoying being alone. So I decided, I'll just go drive around a little bit. And was driving back and forth looking for moose. And then I thought, oh, the Soda Butte campsite is right here, the campground. We did a story on it. It's something I'd thought about a lot because me and Jeff go to the Hogle Zoo a lot and see those bears quite a bit, the cubs from the mom that killed the guy. And I'd never
I
actually gone
talk
into
to
the
him
campground.
every time. I
Yeah,
say,
Jeff,
if you guys hadn't killed that guy, you'd be free right now.
you'd be fine. Yeah, it's because you got a bad mom. Anyway, I figured I'll go check it out. And as I was driving up, you can kind of see the campground from the highway down in the thicket, the trees and the willows and stuff. And I realized like, oh, there's no one down there. It's probably closed. I'm not going to be able to go in. But as I drive up, I see that the gate is open. It's only like halfway open. It looked like it had just gone unlocked. And so I thought, oh, cool, I'll go down there. So I drive down, the entire thing's empty. And I remembered that the guy, Kevin Kammer, who died there, had been killed on the second loop. So I was kind of driving toward the second loop. And as I was doing that, I see a dark shape in the woods. And I'm thinking, oh, that looks like a moose. I'll go check it out. My group really liked moose, and I really wanted to find one with antlers. So I thought, oh, if it's one with antlers, I'll go wake him up and bring him over here. So I drive down, and sure enough, it's a bull moose, and it's looking a little agitated. And I figure it's because I'm playing my music so loud. So I kind of back up to give it a little more space. And when I do that, it charges out at me. And in my mind, I've been charged by moose a couple times. I think, oh, this is just a pissed off moose. It's trying to create some space. And then all of a sudden I see it look over its shoulder and run. And I'm like, oh shit, there's something behind this moose. And my first thought was another moose or wolves, because those are the two things that you would expect to see them the most pissed off about or scared of. And all of a sudden this big grizzly bear just runs out of the forest and chases the moose right past my car and down the road. And it's funny because in the video you hear me go, Jesus, when the moose runs out and then the bear shows up and I'm like, oh, fuck. And they run down the road. I back up really quick, which isn't in the video. And by then the bear had already given up. It was grazing in a field nearby. And I sat there with it for a while. And then I actually did go get my group and bring them so they could see the grizzly bear. And
so
I saw
how
the
would
moose with
that
antlers too.
How would that fight have gone?
It's likely the bear would have killed the moose had it caught it. So I actually dug into the literature a little bit after this because I knew I was going to get that question a bit. And there are places where moose are a major food source for bears and even adult moose. And in the spring, especially because all of that testosterone and like sex hormones haven't hit in those moose yet. So they're not all like jacked up and huge. And they're quite a bit less muscular and whatnot. So the bears can take them down. So I fully think this bear was trying. The moose just had too big of a lead on it. And honestly, I might have kind of given that moose the out that it needed. Had I stayed parked there, I wonder if the bear would have gotten it right in front of me because the moose didn't have anywhere to really run.
Oh, interesting.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But the craziest thing for me is after that whole thing happened, I was really curious what campsite they were in. And I went back and I saw it was campsite 26. And then I went back to my hotel room and reread the story, and it was 26 that Kevin Kammerer was killed in. So this whole thing happened in the exact campsite that he was killed in, which was wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
you sent it to me, and like I knew it was a cool video, but I didn't know it was gonna take off the way it has.
Neither did I. I mean, a big part of that is thanks to the Nature is Metal guy because he shared it too.
Yeah.
That gave it
Thanks, man.
quite the boost. Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, lots of wild comments on that post too. Like the
A
second
lot of,
you
like,
get into it.
Bear and man in the woods talk.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of that, a lot of just political stuff or people telling me I should have gotten in the way of the bear to block
Yeah,
it
that
from
is
the
a great
moose.
one.
There's no way that guy was serious. And if he was, I kind of respect it.
Yeah.
That bear, though, it was really big and round.
It was pretty big. I think it was a male. I would guess it was like somewhere around 400 to 450. But like male bears in Yellowstone can get up to like 700 pounds. So they can get quite a bit bigger than that bear.
Well, that bear's about to gain a few 100 pounds.
Yeah.
If it ate the moose, it would be up there.
Yeah, it'd get bigger for sure.
Because what, moose are like 1,000 pounds?
Yeah, but it wouldn't.
So it would have
just
been
put
like
all of that.
1,500 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty crazy. I really wish both of you had been there. Jesse was the first person I called, and then both of you were the next two people I called because I was so pumped and excited.
Who did you
about
call first of us two?
You, Jeff.
Yeah.
I called you first, but
I'm not even offended.
You're my brother. I also knew that if I called Mike, he would just wait 3 minutes and then call me back. So,
Yeah, that's how it works.
as is his custom. Yeah.
Yeah, your phone's always on like do not disturb or something.
I know you're just looking at it and then mentally preparing yourself to have to call back because I do the same thing sometimes too. So I get it. Don't worry about it.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's it for that little story. You guys got anything else you want to talk about before we launch into our main story?
Let's get into it, dude.
Yeah, let's
All
go.
right, let's do it. Okay. Well, it is another grizzly story. Definitely have grizzlies on the brain since I've been in Yellowstone. I know you guys both love grizzly bears. Mike, I think at the end of the episode, we'll see where they're currently at on your claw scale.
It's a sliding scale.
Yeah, when I was working in Yellowstone, this was a story that got brought up pretty often. My supervisors, coworkers, people that I worked with would talk about this one. I think it was like a pretty famous one in the park's history. There's some really interesting little tidbits about this story, but it's one I've been saving for a while, and I'm excited to finally tell it. So, Grizzly Bear 59 wasn't any stranger to human activity. In 1980, she was only roughly 2 years old, and she was caught when officials were trying to catch another bear in the canyon area of Yellowstone National Park. She was caught close to human areas, in quotation marks, because really no part of Yellowstone is like super urban, but it definitely, canyon has a lot of infrastructure. And she was relocated 32 miles away to High Lake, but she quickly returned back to the canyon area. Jeff, can you describe the canyon area of Yellowstone really quickly?
I don't know if I can.
Do you know what?
Okay.
How
about the?
I don't know what the canyon area is.
It's where the falls are.
Okay, yeah. Well, there's like a road along most of it, and then the canyon's huge, yellow rock. I think that's kind of where they get the name Yellowstone from, is probably that canyon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
Osprey Nest.
So far, the coolest waterfall I've ever seen, as far as just like amount of water falling from like a high distance, which I think is what you're looking for from waterfalls,
Yeah. How about, do you remember where the actual like canyon buildings are though? There's like that gift shop and the visitor center and stuff, that huge parking lot.
Is that where
Maybe
we
you don't
saw those
remember
two
it.
black bears? Or those black bears last time?
Maybe, I can't remember.
Is that where we got fined, Jeff, for dropping a rock off?
We
the
got
ledge?
fined at the waterfall.
Unbelievable. I'm never
trying
going back
to
to Yellowstone.
kill that osprey with a rock.
We could have killed it. It's like 8 miles away.
We were like
That nest is
tossing
dead
rocks
now.
off a cliff, and then we got the rangers called on us, and some dude told them we were throwing rocks at an osprey. I still never saw an osprey.
No,
Like
you had to have like binoculars. We needed to be like Tom Brady to even have a chance at hitting it.
Well, every time I go there now, that osprey nest is empty, and I think it's because of you guys.
Oh, shoot.
So yeah, that's kind of the canyon area of the park, and then there's Canyon Village, which has a lot of
it's
stores.
not actually. I'm
It's
gonna
not.
clear
It's
that
not
up.
actually their fault. Okay. Yeah. There's stores there. There's a visitor center. There's park housing. There's a little village there, and this bear, Bear 59, really made that area her home. So she was translocated, removed back to High Lake, which was 32 miles away, but then she went right back to Canyon. Then she was captured again the following August in 81. She was relocated 25 miles away in Saddle Mountain, but then she was back in the canyon area within 5 days.
Really? They can just
yeah.
like find it again that easy?
They have a homing ability, just kind of like the pigeons and stuff that we talked about. They can find their way back to their home.
Wow.
So her next captures were in 1984, and then she was captured twice that year from IGBST long-term monitoring efforts. So IGBST is the Interagency Grizzly Bear Study Team. It's kind of this big study team that's constantly collaring and looking at what bears are doing in the greater Yellowstone. So from 81 to 85, she's monitored closely as part of these regular research efforts. The reason I bring this all up is this bear was pretty well known. Not only had she been caught a number of times, but she was also really common in the canyon area. So photographers, park workers, visitors would see this bear pretty regularly. She was a well-known bear in the park.
It wasn't that she was doing anything wrong, is it? She was just a bear of interest that would be worthwhile to research and track?
So far, no. So far, she hadn't really done anything wrong. But I will say, at that point in the park's history, bears that were really habituated and hanging out near the road or near these villages and stuff, they didn't really know how to deal with them yet. It wasn't as like large scale of a thing as it is now. And so often those bears were moved just because they were worried about them being that close to people for so long. And nowadays we kind of
they hadn't figured out to shoot them with shotguns like you guys did.
yeah, hit them with beanbags and paintballs and stuff.
You know,
they
after
actually hadn't.
After getting caught on like trumped up charges, she hadn't really done anything yet. She's probably like, well, I might as well do something bad if I'm going to get caught anyway. So I don't really blame her for whatever she's about to do.
Anymore in Yellowstone, they do tolerate, and when I worked there, we tolerated a lot of habituation. So bears are allowed to kind of be habituated now, but not food conditioned. And if they're too close to the roadside, what Jeff just alluded to, bear managers will go in and haze them. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go into this story. Okay.
You could get canceled for that nowadays.
Yeah.
You can get canceled.
Hazing?
You can cancel for all sorts of stuff.
Taping them to goalposts and stuff.
Who's the celebrity?
John Hamm.
John Hamm had a really bad one, right?
Yeah, he hazed.
Someone's testicles or something.
Probably.
Jeez.
I drove him once at Sundance, and I really wanted to ask him about it, but I didn't because I'm a coward.
This episode is brought to you by Thread Wallets. If you're always on the go like me, and I kind of am, been on the road a lot this past half year and tend to forget your essentials, you need to check out Thread. I'll never forget the day my life changed. A mutual friend of Jeff and I's, and Wes, I guess, he brought home a little Thread wallet from a vendor conference or something. And he's like, hey, I don't want this. You want to use it? And seriously, it kind of changed my life for the better because it forced me to consolidate. I had a cozy little compact wallet. I put only my essentials in there, and I downsized from my like gross bulky leather wallet. And ever since, I've been very compact and on the go.
I heard one of the ways like Gen Z can scope out millennials is if you have a wallet. Ooh. If you use a wallet still, you're a millennial because the young generation doesn't use them.
We don't. All three of us, we got some new Thread wallets.
Yeah.
Park themed, national park themed. They're sweet.
Yeah, I love mine.
Thread is your go-to for all things carry, minimalist and functional. They offer everything from crossbody bags and wallets to lanyards and lip balm holders. You guys know how excited I was about the lip balm holder. I kind of been using it too. Their products are sleek, stylish, and perfect for staying organized, whether you're heading to the beach or running errands. And guess what? Thread just launched their national parks collection, like we referenced.
You gave me like no time to guess.
I know. I'm really bad at that. I need to leave you guys a bigger window to respond when I ask what I kind of consider rhetorical questions, but maybe I need to communicate that better to you. And guess what?
The national park theme.
Yeah. Featuring fun and functional wallets inspired by your favorite national parks. I picked the Redwoods. Really nice brown, nice earthy brown color to my Thread wallet. I love it. Explore the entire collection at threadwallets.com, where you no longer need to sacrifice functionality for style or vice versa with Thread. And here's the best part. They're giving our Tooth and Claw listeners 20% off with the code TOOTH. So make sure to use that at checkout. That's threadwallets.com, code TOOTH for 20% off.
For someone with ADHD, it's been like a real game changer. Because it used to be 3 things I had to remember when I left my house: wallet, keys, and phone. And now I just need keys and phone, and I'm good. It's really helped a lot.
It's great. Yeah, I love it.
All right. So early in 1986, she was seen with 2 cubs of the year, or koi as they're commonly called in the ecosystem. Throughout 1986, she was seen in both the canyon area, the Antelope Creek area not too far away, and she was seen preying on elk in Antelope Creek or eating a bison carcass near Canyon. She was photographed in a softball field and near buildings in Canyon as well. Lots of visitors had seen this bear with their cubs, and she had displayed habituated behavior to their presence, which means she essentially ignored them as she led her cubs around in search for food. So she's very habituated. Yes.
You can't even just ignore someone without getting in trouble? Like, what's she supposed to do?
No, she wasn't getting in trouble for that. That was okay. That was fine. We're going to talk about what got her in a little bit of trouble. So in the late summer of 86, well, we'll get to that too. Bear 59 started getting a bit more bold around humans, and she had several run-ins with people as she was seeking out anthropogenic food sources. So anthropogenic just means human. Like anything that's human is anthropogenic.
She can't kill one person.
Well, we're still going to get to that. You guys are really skipping ahead here. Okay. All right. So one night, a park employee left a freezer outside their trailer, and she attempted to break into it. The employee heard her outside and sprayed her with a fire extinguisher from 6 feet away, and she and her cubs ran off. She didn't display any aggression toward this person. She didn't get any of their food, but this person was like 6 feet away, which is pretty close to a grizzly bear.
Especially with a fire hose. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's a fire extinguisher, not a hose. Yeah.
Nah, never mind. That's not that bad.
Fire hose. I feel like I'd rather have
the fire hose.
Yeah, fire hose is powerful, dude.
Her behavior was starting to approach that of a problem bear or a food conditioned bear. So once again, park officials make the decision to trap Bear 59 and her cubs and relocate her. So on September 4th, 1986, the whole family was trapped, and they were moved to Cub Creek, which is about 22 miles away. And on September 19th, so 15 days later, she returned to the canyon area, but her cubs weren't with her. So it's possible that when she got translocated or relocated, she ran into a resident bear and that her cubs were killed by a male, or that the stress of the relocation and this return trip to Canyon was too much for her and the cubs were either separated or abandoned. Whatever the case was, the cubs were gone and her general demeanor toward people may have changed during that time.
She blamed people for...
Yeah. I did read that people had like
what year was this again?
Seen her cubs, 86. That afterward, maybe people had seen her cubs and then they were like saying, oh, they're starving. Often cubs will actually be fine once they're separated from their mom, as long as they're not killed by another bear. There's plenty of food for them to find and stuff. So they don't usually starve. It's more that they're at much higher risk of being killed by another bear when that happens. Anyway, she didn't have her cubs with her. So being handled again, being translocated, losing her cubs, all of those things could change the behavior of a bear. It could make them grumpier. It could make them more aggressive. Who's to say if that's what happened with this bear? But this is kind of her history leading up to the event that we're going to talk about. And I think it's important to know. So quickly, we're going to talk about some of these management options that people have with bears when they do start to become a problem before we get into the story of our victim in this case. So we just brought up habituation. Habituation is pretty much accepted now in Yellowstone and Grand Teton, but it can lead to some problems. So there's actually never been a mauling at a bear jam in Yellowstone or Grand Teton. So these, like, when I say bear jam, Jeff or Mike, do either of you want to explain what a bear jam is? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as human jam. You can use it on toast. You can use it on bagels.
Soylent Greens. Basically,
it's people.
It's like a traffic jam around a bear. Like someone spots a bear and cars start piling up and make things difficult to, navigate through and around. And then inevitably a park ranger starts yelling at everyone.
That's pretty much true, except for when I was a park ranger. I never yelled at people. Because you know why? Because of that ranger in Glacier that ruined our night.
Holy cow. She was out of control.
She was freaking out. Anyway, yeah, it's exactly that. It's when a bunch of people park on the side of the road. It creates a traffic jam. It creates some issues. But those happen commonly. They happen every day in Yellowstone, and no one has ever been injured by a bear at one of those things. And that's because these bears are habituated. That's normal human behavior to them now. When they're in a meadow, they just expect cars to pull up, people to get out and take photos. For them, they've seen it now dozens of times and they know that it's not a threat. So they don't tend to like really interface with people as long as people are obeying the rules. I think if someone walked out to one of them, then suddenly that's novel behavior and they might hurt that person. But as long as people are keeping the rules at a bear jam, that habituation has kind of been accepted. So Jeff brought up hazing. Hazing is another management tool. It is an immediate lesson that's taught to discourage a bear. It probably won't change their long-term behavior, but it will change their behavior of what they're doing then and there. So if a bear's like right by the road or doing something that puts its life at danger because we don't want them right by the road, a bear management official can go in and haze, and that can be anything from like honking a horn to shooting the 12 gauge with rubber bullets or beanbags. Beanbags are a lot more common. That's just to kind of change the bear's immediate behavior. Aversive conditioning is when you continually haze a bear in order to try and change its behavior long term. The jury's kind of out on whether or not that actually works. Some people think it does. Some people aren't sure. This is all to get us to our next point, which is translocation or relocation. So it's kind of what you guys would imagine, but that's essentially catching a bear and moving it to a new location. But just based on what you guys have learned about bears through the podcast, through your own experience, Jeff, do you think if a bear's already getting into trouble, moving it to a new location, what do you think it's going to do at that new location?
It's going to probably get all the other bears in trouble too. Make friends with them and be a bad influence on bears that weren't doing anything bad.
Yeah, that's actually maybe a little bit true, but I know you're kind of joking. But you're hinting at the right thing, which is that you're just moving a problem. You haven't changed that bear's behavior. You're just putting it in a new place where it can then display that behavior. And unfortunately, there's just not enough wilderness to where you can put a bear that it isn't going to at some point run into some kind of human development, whether that's roads or cabins or anything. They patrol large areas. They move a lot. Sooner or later, that bear might get into trouble in its new area.
Even like human bears, if you watch Man vs. Wild,
Yeah.
you can't put a bear anywhere where he doesn't find civilization. They've tried.
He gets in trouble everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And he finds people every time.
He does. So that's translocation. There's a lot of cons to it. It's expensive. They have this homing ability, so they can generally just get back to where you took them from anyway. It's really hard to find areas that are far from human settlements. And it also can be really difficult to know the dynamics of the bear population where you're dropping that bear. So if you put it in a place where there's already like a really dominant male or something, you might just be dropping it into a really bad situation where it gets injured by another bear or kicked out of that area. So it's really tricky. And because of that, it used to be used a lot, and really it's not used much anymore. And we're going to get into that in our conservation part. So the last management thing, and this is kind of the biology part of this episode since we've talked about grizzlies a lot, this last management decision is removing the animal from the population or euthanizing it. And that's typically last case scenario. But luckily we are at a place with grizzly bears where that is an option now, because when we didn't have many, that was something that we really wanted to avoid at all costs. We'll talk about that a little bit in the conservation part as well. So just quickly to end that thought, there are multiple papers that have looked at relocations or translocations, how well they work. For the most part, they point at it as a pretty poor management tool with only about a 30% success rate. And I'm doing success in quotation marks because really it's even hard to measure long-term if the bear survived. So it's really not that helpful of a tool anymore.
I feel like in Bryce, there was a black bear that was relocated that actually did all right.
Yeah, the nice thing about a place like Bryce is that well, it's not a nice thing, but it's like a thing. The habitat's so fragmented there, the black bear habitat, that if you take a bear from Bryce and put it in the most like close black bear habitat, there's not really a way for them to get back because there's too much like development and roads and everything in the way. So they kind of have to stay in their new area. So it does tend to work a little bit better with black bears, but for grizzly bears, it doesn't really work that well.
Got it.
When Yellowstone closed their dumps and stopped feeding bears, translocations were kind of necessary. They had to kill a lot of those bears, but they wanted to give these leftover bears the best possible chance to remain there and repopulate the area with wilder, non-food conditioned bears. So they had to move a lot of them. And Bear 59 later was one of those bears. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in our conservation section again. So when she made her way back to the canyon area, she was by herself. It's impossible for us to say how it affected her behavior, but the way that she treated humans in her radius was about to change very drastically. On October 3rd, 1986, wildlife photographer William Bill Tesinsky was feeling a bit restless. Bill had an appointment to travel from his hometown of Stockett, Montana, near Great Falls, down to Clyde Park, Montana, near Bozeman. And he was planning on meeting with a rancher in the area to try and sell some of his wildlife photographs. And then he was going to do his best to find some elk in Clyde Park and create some new photographs for his portfolio. He's 38 years old. He's doing his best to make it as an auto mechanic and then part-time wildlife photographer. He had photos in galleries in Great Falls, and he had managed to sell a number of his photos, at least enough to make his passion a worthwhile pursuit. So his specialty was really wild animals. He actually avoided national parks because he didn't like how habituated the animals were. He wanted to get like truly wild animals in a wild environment. And you know what? National parks do have truly wild animals, but they are a bit habituated. It's kind of like our first orangutan versus our last orangutan. You know, it kind of feels different when you're in a place where you really have to search for them.
But that doesn't make us think any less of Boogie Boy. We still love him. It
sure doesn't. Yeah. So he's 5'7", 160 pounds. He has a dark bushy beard, and he was actually essentially blind in his right eye. But he was really used to navigating difficult and potentially dangerous terrain in order to get the shots that he wanted.
I wonder how many times he left his lens cap on because of that.
Because he was blind?
Because he couldn't tell if the lens cap was on or off.
Oh, because he just...
Or he probably used his other eye, huh?
Probably. That'd be my guess if he's blind in the right one. But it's a good thought. So he left his home on a blustery October 3rd morning. He told his girlfriend that he'd be back the next day, and they had planned to eat dinner with his daughter and his daughter's husband. Even though he's a bit of a wild man and he'd go off on these solo expeditions alone, he was a really good communicator, and he always found time to let his girlfriend know if he's going to be late or if there were any kind of problems with his itinerary. He had a total of 3 children from his last marriage, and he did his best to be a really constant, good presence in their lives. But something happened in Clyde Park that made him get a bit of a wild hair, and he changed plans and decided to head down to Yellowstone instead. The park was tantalizingly close to Clyde Park, and inside Yellowstone, Bill would have the chance to find elk, bison, and potentially grizzly bears. So photographing a grizzly bear had always been a goal of his, and this is before the day of thousands of photographers, all armed with really intelligent digital cameras. So getting a compelling photo of a grizzly was a lot harder, and the right photo of a grizzly could actually potentially alter your career. And he saw it as a big gap in his resume, and he really wanted to fix it by getting a grizzly photo. So he drove into the park sometime on Friday, October 3rd, and he likely spent the night somewhere in his car. So there's a few places in Yellowstone that are famous for wildlife, and Hayden Valley is one of those places. It's sandwiched between Yellowstone Lake and the canyon area, and this huge valley provides perfect habitat for large herds of elk, bison, and a good chunk of the park's grizzly bears, and currently there are wolves too, but not at this point. A road cuts through the eastern edge of the valley, and it gives visitors great access to these large open vistas and the wildlife that you might see within them. So I love Hayden Valley. Jeff, just to remind you where Hayden Valley is if you don't remember, it's where we had the argument over whether we saw an otter or a muskrat in that big open valley.
You know where I know where it is. You know that I know where it is. You just wanted to bring that up.
I honestly didn't want to.
It was an otter, dude.
Sure, it was an otter. Mike, do you remember?
Oh, you win, Jeff. You won.
Do you remember the Hayden Valley at all, Mike?
Named after Hayden Christensen, right?
No, not after him. It's one of the more beautiful valleys in Yellowstone. I absolutely love it. It just opens up into these rolling hills. You're kind of stuck in trees, and all of a sudden it's this huge opening, and it's just beautiful. It's a really great place to see a lot of different animals.
You can get as close to the bison there as you want.
You probably can, but you might get gored.
Don't. I do remember,
don't.
though. I think I do remember that stretch is just a beautiful sunlit basin in a valley with tons of bison everywhere. Very green, at least the time of year we were there. We were still reeling from getting fined, but that was that was when my anger started to wear off. We got a huckleberry milkshake and everything was right.
It very much feels like one of those places where if you hike up to a hill and just look around with your binoculars or scope, you're likely to see a bear or a wolf. There are a lot of animals.
It's
out
a place where you'll probably see a bear, but you need a nice telescope.
Exactly.
Because you
kinda
got a really long range.
All right, so early on the morning of October 4th, Bill Tesinsky woke up to foggy...
Telescope, spotting scope.
Spotting
Telescope's
scope,
for stars,
spotting scope.
right?
Yeah, telescope would really get you in close, though.
Spyglass.
Bill Tesinsky woke up to a foggy, overcast morning. He put on his clothes, including some blue jeans, tennis shoes, and a belt that was clasped with a large belt buckle that had his name Bill on the front of it.
That's
and
awesome.
Drove down toward Hayden Valley. It is pretty cool. We should get one for Braxton.
We should. That's how I know I'm not cool because I don't have the confidence to pull that kind of move off. And I feel like if you're cool, you can.
That is pretty cool. It is
Mike?
a cool move.
I don't know. It just doesn't work for a belt buckle. For me, at least.
Yeah,
Bill is
the
a better
perfect name for
belt buckle name, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like his dog tags if he does end up dying.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because that's actually going to come up. All right, so at 7 a.m. that morning, Bill parked his car in the Cascade Trailhead pullout and pulled out his binoculars to scan the surrounding area. He saw a large herd of bison, and he snapped a couple photos, which were photos 19 and 20 on his roll. While majestic and iconic bison photos were a dime a dozen, Bill was here to find much more elusive camera fodder. So he pulls out of this pullout, he continues down the road, but not before one of the park rangers had time to clock his early model Chevy Impala with Montana plates and make a note of it. And this would actually be the last time that anyone would see Bill Tesinsky alive.
Oh.
Besides that bear.
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Lumen. Lumen's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and then on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs. It gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. It's a pretty interesting little gizmo because I remember when I first tried it, I was wondering what my metabolism was doing. I'm at the age where I think my metabolism is really caught up with me. And I remember the days where I could just eat anything and it didn't matter. I just stayed kind of the same. And those days are definitely gone. And so when I blew into it and it told me what I was burning, I found that really interesting. And it kind of did help me change my diet preferences a little bit. Just knowing I did it in the morning and I was like, you know what, maybe these essentially like treats that I'm eating for breakfast aren't the best choice for me personally. So it is really cool. It gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. And you can also breathe into it before or after workouts and meals so you can know exactly what's going on with your body and your metabolism in real time. Another really cool thing is if you're a person who menstruates, it also tracks your cycle as well as the onset of menopause, and it can adjust your recommendations based on your cycle and your hormonal shifts. So, if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/tooth to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/tooth. for 15% off your purchase. So if you guys are looking to get a little less beefy, this Lumen might be a good way for you to do it. But if I know my beefy boys, you're looking for
good.
More beef, not
No,
less
it's cool.
beef.
It's like
True.
It's like a Star Wars thing almost, where you just like blow into it and it gives you a ton of information.
Tells you your metachlorians.
Like when Luke blows into R2-D2 and it gives him the Princess Leia message.
Yeah, just like that. I wish it measured midichlorians. All right.
Oh, man.
Okay, so a few miles down the road, Bill sees something large and brown in the expansive Hayden Valley. It's too small to be a bison, but too large to be a black bear. He slams on his brakes, and he quickly swerves into the nearby Otter Creek picnic area pullout. Bill's breaths were rapid, his hands are shaking
What type
a little.
of creek?
Otter?
Otter.
Is that what I
Otter
heard?
Creek. Yes.
In the valley where I saw the otter?
Yes. It's just there, right there,
Wes.
Jeff.
Oh, he got you.
All right, really quick, before we get too into this, I did just mention the last person to ever see Bill alive. It just happened. So a lot of this is conjecture at this point, and I do want to mention my sources. I use both this book, Taken by Bear in Yellowstone, which was written by Kathleen Snow, and I know that author really consulted a lot of the official park reports and whatnot for these stories. And then also Scott McMillan's Mark of the Grizzly. Those are my two main sources. This is also a story I talked to quite a bit with my supervisors in Yellowstone and got a little bit of inside info that way too. So his hands are shaking. He grabs his tripod and his camera, and he's thinking, one morning in Yellowstone, he already found his grizzly bear. Maybe his luck is starting to turn, and this is going to be his big break. The bear's roughly 500 yards away, and Bill would have to make a careful approach. The rules dictate the guests are not to approach bears closer than 100 yards, but he's ready to break a few rules in order to get the photos that he needed. This is October. There's hardly anyone in the park. It's a cold morning. It's not likely anyone's going to see him, so he decides just to go for it. Kind of like you guys with the osprey nest. All right, so another rule that he's considering breaking was using this elk bugle to try and maybe get a better shot of this bear.
Ooh.
So he ties on a black scarf. The elk bugle is tied to that scarf around his neck, and then he carefully gets out of his car where he puts on his brimmed camouflage hat, insulated camouflage sweatshirt. He slips his gloves on, he grabs his camera, a 200mm lens, which isn't that close, and he attaches it to the tripod and then creeps out into the sagebrush. The wind's blowing toward him, and he, again, feels like this is a lucky break because this bear is probably not going to pick up his scent as he approaches it. As he gets closer, he takes off his right glove and stuffs it into the pocket of his sweatshirt. Now, that's because he wanted to take photos with his right hand, and he wanted to make sure he didn't have anything in the way. He knew he might not have long to get the photo he wanted, so he wanted to be as quick as possible. But then he sees something that probably made his heart sink. This bear is wearing a radio collar. And in his opinion, this is someone who, again, likes to take pictures of very wild-looking animals. A radio collar is going to ruin that. It doesn't necessarily ruin it, though. It just makes it a lot trickier, because what he would have to do is get the bear in a position where its head and its neck fur would obscure that radio collar. And you can do that. Like, I've taken plenty of pictures of bears with radio collars where it doesn't look like they're wearing them, especially grizzly bears in the fall, because they're really fluffy this time of year. So it doesn't necessarily make him want to give up. He creeps closer and closer, and then when he's within 50 feet, he pulls out his elk bugle and blows, hoping for the chance to get the photo that he needed. A bear looking at him with eye contact where the radio collar isn't visible. Bear 59 does indeed raise her head, but she charges, and Bill takes the last photo that his camera would ever take.
Oh, man.
So around noon that day, snow starts to fall, and another ranger notices Bill's car. This time it's in the Otter Creek picnic area, and it's parked haphazardly as though he had been in a rush. So the ranger peers into the car. He doesn't see anyone, but he also can't see any tracks leading from the vehicle. He looks back into the car, and he can see a card with Bill Tesinsky's contact info on it. So he notes down the information and he drives off. He's thinking, like, this guy's probably on a hike, or maybe his car broke down and he had to travel to go get someone to fix it or get parts. So he just leaves. That night, Bill's girlfriend and his daughter start to get a little concerned when he doesn't show up. But they know Clyde Park is remote. Maybe he didn't have the ability to get out and get word to them in time. He almost always communicated when he's going to be late, but they're also, like, aware of how wild this dude is, and they know we're probably just going to see him tomorrow. The next morning, though, Sunday, October 5th, the car is still there, and the ranger's starting to get pretty concerned. They check the immediate area, they find no tracks, and they start calling these numbers that they saw on his card, but no one picks up. The car stays unmoved all day, and as the evening falls, they start talking about bears. Specifically Bear 59, who no one had seen in Canyon for a few days. And all these pieces are starting to come together into like a real nightmare scenario for these rangers. The next day, the 6th of October, the car's still there, and a search is starting to be organized. In the meantime, the ranger's still calling his home, and around 3:30 p.m. on Monday, someone finally answers. It sounds like a child, and the ranger asks if William Tesinsky was there, and they say that he's at work. So this ranger then calls his work, and they get a receptionist, and the ranger says, "Hey, does Bill Tesinsky work there?" And the receptionist is like, "Yeah, he's here. He's at work right now." And this ranger's like, "Oh, great." You know, like,
Yeah.
you can just imagine all this relief.
Yeah.
And the ranger's like, "Oh, I need to talk to him right away." And then the receptionist leaves and comes back, and she's like, "My bad. He's actually not here. He didn't show up for work today."
Oh, man.
And then his girlfriend actually
He's a
worked at the
car
same-
mechanic?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like she should know.
Yeah,
It's not
seriously.
like more
Who's
than
there?
like 5 car mechanics.
In Stockett, Montana, a town of like 100 people. His girlfriend works at the same shop, and she gets on the phone, and she's like, "Hey, we're really worried about him. We've called Clyde Park. We've told the sheriffs there that he's missing. We like haven't heard anything from him." And this ranger is like, "Well, his car is in Yellowstone." And the girlfriend's like, "What the fuck? You know, like, why is he in Yellowstone?"
Oh, yeah, because he
Yeah.
wasn't even supposed to be there. He was supposed to
He
be,
was supposed to be in
Bozeman?
Clyde Park. Yeah, Clyde Park, which is by Bozeman. So she hangs up the phone, probably kind of in shock, wondering what's going on with her boyfriend. So the Rangers, they decide to organize a search. And the next day on the 7th, they head out. And in the meantime, they're checking Bear 59's position, and they are getting a lot of points all around Otter Creek. At the time, like, they would do this with a VHF signal and a plane, and all of the like beeps that they're getting are all in this one tight little group around Otter Creek, which isn't a good sign. So they include two-person dog teams on this search, 7 people on horseback, 4 people on foot, and then a helicopter or a fixed-wing aircraft. A few of these rangers are using a VHF antenna to try and get real-time positions for this bear as they're going. So they're listening for the bear, and then they're kind of heading in that direction just in case the bear did actually attack him. And they're doing their best to get these positions, and they're not really hearing it. They're carefully patrolling around this area, and they're really having a hard time getting a signal. And they go back to Bill's vehicle, and suddenly they get a signal. And they follow it through the woods. And I've done this before. Like, when you're following that signal, it's really hard not just to get locked in on that. And the front ranger was doing that. And as they were walking and it was getting stronger and stronger, the back ranger suddenly sees these ravens fly up. And that ranger's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they stop. And 25 yards away is the bear. And the bear's eating something.
You would have like bumped into it.
They think they might have ran into it had these ravens not flown up.
That would be funny. Just bonk into it.
Probably wouldn't have been funny, but it would have been interesting. This ranger, they tell each other to stop. They both get pretty freaked out. The signal's just hammering. The bear's right there. They realize they're too close. So they go back to their patrol vehicle. They grab binoculars and a rifle with the telescopic sight. 2 rifles, actually. And then they go back to get close enough to the bear where they can see it clearly through the binoculars. And when they look through the binoculars, they see that the bear is eating something. And what it's eating is a human leg with the tennis shoe still on the foot.
Jeez.
So they watch in horror as they see this bear turn the kill over, and they see both legs flip out, blue jeans and tennis shoes still visible. And then the bear drags these remains across the ground and starts feeding. It then looks up at the men and it woofs. Jeff, can you kind of make a bear woof for me? I can't hear you, but I'm sure you're making it.
It looks like you're doing a good job.
Yeah. It's like a sound. And it actually kind of does a little bluff charge at them and then goes back to eating these human remains. And as they're watching it, they can hear bones crunching and they can hear the sound of the bear like eating and tearing meat from these remains, which they said they would never forget that sound.
That's awful.
They call the rest of the search party to say, hey, search is off. We found the body. And they actually get orders from the lead ranger to kill the bear. So they line up their rifles and pretty much simultaneously take their shots. They knock the bear backwards, immediately killing her.
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Element. I wanted to talk a little bit about something different that I use Element for. So we joke around that like me and Mike are beefy just because of that Outdoor Magazine article. But like, truth be told, I do want to lose a little bit of weight. So I've been fasting, and Element actually is like the perfect drink mix to have when you're fasting, because it keeps me from feeling too tired or crampy or weak during the fasting. I can still exercise, which is important. And a lot of times I've done like the intermittent fasting before, and the problem with it is I get so low energy that I'm not as active as I was pre-fasting. So then it kind of counteracts me trying to get healthy. But with Element, it's been really great for me to be like doing this intermittent fasting and still have energy to be able to exercise and live an active life.
You look great, by the way.
Oh, thanks, dude.
You look full of electrolytes.
You can really see the electrolytes beaming out of you right now.
This helps with fasting because with fasting you can get low blood sugar or inadequate electrolytes, and Element takes care of that. So fewer electrolytes come in during a fast and more go out, which makes it easy for deficiency to develop and cramps, headaches, and other uncomfortable symptoms that come along with it. Consuming electrolytes during a fast can help prevent this. The problem, most of the electrolyte products on the market either are loaded with sugar or woefully lacking in actual electrolytes. That's why Element's so important. So LMNT, Element, came up with a fantastic offer for us. Just go to drinklmnt.com/tooth for a free sample pack with any drink mix purchase.
Yeah, you got that. You got that out.
I'll see what I can do in post, but nailed it, more or less.
I went off script a little, but it has been helping me with the fasting. So
yeah, I can attest to that.
Like, I love Element. I got mad at Jessie the other week because she drank all my Element and didn't replace it.
You've said that before.
I know. I did it again. It's like a constant source of conflict for us. All right.
That's why I don't have a girlfriend.
Yeah, because you don't want him drinking all your
I
element.
got so much element, dude.
Yeah, I know. All right, so the rangers call everyone. They tell them the search is off. They kill the bear. And then as they approach the body and this dead bear, they start surveying the scene. And they say it's unlike anything that any of them had ever seen before.
I'd hope
His
so.
lower torso, yeah, you would hope so. Bill Tesinsky's lower torso was mostly untouched, his 2 legs still in his jeans with his tennis shoes still on. Then just above his belt, which still had the big Bill belt buckle attached to it, and actually, Jeff, kind of like you mentioned earlier, helped them know that they were actually looking at Bill Tesinsky. Just above that belt, it looked as though he had been cut in half. The upper half of his body had been mostly eaten, but the rangers found an arm and a hand, his skull, an arm bone, and other bone fragments in different burial piles around the area. His shredded and bloodstained clothing was everywhere. So we've talked about this a little bit with bears, but when they do kill someone or any kind of large prey, they'll eat their fill and then they cache what they're not going to eat. So often what that means is digging like a burial pile and pushing the rest of the carcass under the ground. That's to stop the scent from getting out and drawing in other predators. And it also kind of helps preserve the meat a little bit longer too. So they do that quite a bit. And this bear had been doing that for days with his carcass. It had worked through most of his upper torso at this point. So after they saw the scene, which looked like a bomb had gone off, they used search dogs to retrace his steps and try to put together a narrative of what might have happened in the moment that he was attacked. So using their reports, as well as these books that I read, this is what I could piece together. First of all, he approached the bear to within 50 feet, which is way too close to approach a grizzly bear, even a habituated grizzly bear, that you're just way too close. Even though the rule is 100 yards, and there are people that get that close in their vehicles, if you approach a bear that close, that's out of the norm for them. That's not typical human behavior, and they likely are going to react to that. They're either going to run away or they're going to charge, and this bear decided to charge. So when Bill was within 50 feet, he set up his camera on the tripod, and then a common theory, which I reported earlier, is that he had either blew his elk bugle or he yelled or whistled to get this bear to look up at him, because he really wanted a shot. You know, with wildlife photography, the money shot is to get the eyes. Like, you want the animal looking at you, and that's likely what he was trying to get. And he did get one last shot as the bear charged at him, which was just a blur and the camera like hitting the ground. She knocked him to the ground.
The shot wasn't good.
It wasn't a good shot, unfortunately. He had no shots of like clear grizzly bears on his roll of film. I do want to look up his photos because I'm really curious to see them. If I find them, we'll post them to the Instagram.
Yeah.
It looks like she knocked Tesinsky to the ground. Then he probably got up and ran about 10 feet up a little hill before she grabbed him again and then mauled him really violently at that spot. And the reason they think that is because the camera was about 10 feet away from where the biggest pool of blood was. And that's where they think she really got him. And then she dragged him and his body over his camera, over the tripod, towards some trees in a small depression where she started eating him. And he very well could have still been alive at that point because there was quite a bit of blood in that spot as well. We know this because there's like fur and blood matted into the tripod legs and the camera, and his bugle was like soaked in blood too. There's a lot of blood on this scene.
Man.
I talked to one of my old supervisors about this when I was working in Yellowstone, and he mentioned that one theory is that these blue jeans actually stopped the bear from consuming the legs. And she'd kind of saved them for last. And then I think when these rangers showed up, she was starting to kind of work on them.
Yeah, because their first sight at the scene was the bear eating a leg with the sneaker still on it, right?
Right. So I think she was just starting to eat the legs. Would be a pretty good ad
like
for blue
Wrangler's
jeans.
ad, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the park did get some pushback for killing this bear, especially because a similar attack had just happened in Glacier with another photographer. But the decision in the Glacier case was not to kill the bear. But I actually think Yellowstone did make the right decision for a couple reasons. First of all, this attack in Glacier involved a female with cubs, so it was more like classic cub defense behavior. It also involved a dog, which aggravated that bear. And then the most important thing here is that this bear in Yellowstone, bear 59, was feeding. And that is just behavior that usually leads to a bear being killed. And the main reason for that is if you leave that bear out there and then someone else gets hurt by the same bear, they have a really good leg for a lawsuit. So it's often, and it can be a safety hazard. So they did kill this bear. The other, the last thing too is because the bear was still feeding, they knew they were killing the right bear. Whereas in Glacier, they would have just been like trying to find a bear with cubs, and it's like possible they would have killed the wrong bear in that scenario.
Sure.
Okay, that's pretty much the story. We're going to talk in conservation about just how much better things have gotten for bears in Yellowstone. But do you guys have any questions about the story before we move on?
For what would Jeff and what Mike do thing, I would have got a good picture of it right before it got me.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Without the collar in it. Speaking of the collar, so is there some kind of mechanism on the collar that accounts for like the size change that a bear will go throughout the year?
There are, especially with these grizzly collars. Like the collars that me and Jeff put on black bears, they had a little explosive charge in them that I could trigger from my keyboard to make the collar fall off.
Kill the bear.
So our bears were only going to be, it doesn't kill
blow their head off.
Blow their head off if they're
and then you can collect the collar. No, it like made it so we could control the amount of time the bear would wear the collar. And so if we thought, this bear's getting a little older and bigger, we should probably drop this collar, we could drop it. With these grizzly collars, the new ones have that as well, but they also have this elastic part that you put on the collar, and that allows the bear to have some room as it grows.
Right. Okay.
It's not like a true elastic, but it works really well. It's really slick the way it works.
Yeah, that's nice.
So they're built really well for these bears. Back then, they would just do capture recapture. So the bear would be in the study for a few years, then they'd catch it again and take the collar off. Anymore, we can just drop those collars. So it works pretty well. Yeah.
About the bugle, the elk bugle, that's not like a faux pas in the wildlife photography scene, is to like use calls or anything like that? Or is that kind of like a cheat?
It's kind of a cheat.
Okay.
It's illegal in the park. You can't do it in Yellowstone.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And then even with birds, like calling birds sometimes is considered wrong because you're disrupting natural behavior. So it's like you can use bird calls to your best judgment, but like with elk and stuff, obviously like bow hunters can use them. But if you're just trying to get photos, to me, it seems a little cheap. It seems like you're disrupting that animal's behavior just for your own gain. And I personally don't love it.
You're like, if you're going to bugle one, you better kill it.
Yeah, you better eat that elk. Well, all right. Any other questions?
No, that's rough. That's rough for a family whose father and boyfriend was found in a place they didn't expect him to be, not alive anymore. That's got to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and from reading in these books, they talk a little bit about how hard it hit his family, and a lot of them were really angry, but most of them did understand, like, this is what he did because he loved it, and that he was a person to push the limit. And his brother was quoted as saying, like, I have no doubt that he got too close to that bear, and I don't blame the bear because Bill just kind of always pushed the envelope a little bit. And I'd like to think that he didn't blame it either, that he knew that he was in her space and risking a lot just for a photo. But yeah, for sure. Like, I'm sure they're still struggling with his loss, even 40 years later.
The bear was probably like, this is my space and you're not one of my top 8. You think
that maybe joke would have played so well in like 2007, but I still love it. All right.
We'll cut that and we'll cut it then.
No, let's leave it. You guys know sharks are one of my favorite animals, and they've been the subject of lore and legend for centuries. And a lot of what people think is shark fact is actually shark fiction. So let's get to the truth. On Shark Week, the podcast from Discovery Channel, you'll hear bizarre shark stories, everything from legends to tall tales to just weird shark encounters. Then, each story is going to be broken down with published research and conversations with experts. Stories like, can you combine a shark and man to make a shark man super soldier? I'm guessing you can't do that, but you'll actually get answers to that question by breaking down shark anatomy, feeding habits, and whether a tiny human body can support a huge shark head. Again, I don't think that's possible, but I guess we'll see. Or you might want to know what happens if shark accidentally eats cocaine in the ocean. Can cocaine shark really exist? And for that, you'll get answers like how drugs affect fish differently. Again, I'm guessing that probably would kill a shark. But since you're a Tooth and Claw listener, we think you're probably interested in sharks, so we think you're really going to like Shark Week, the podcast. And you can listen to Shark Week, the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch Shark Week starting July 7th on Discovery and Max. All right, let's get into our categories. So first of all, I wanted to know your guys' favorite Bill from pop culture. This can be a real-life Bill that's somehow involved in pop culture or a character named Bill. Or
Read
William.
your whole question. Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I said favorite pop culture Bill or William. Sorry.
I'll go first.
All right.
I took William Wallace from Braveheart.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like kids nowadays don't really get how movies used to be either, where we didn't really fact check anything. So that was like who William Wallace was for a long time, was like just like
the coolest.
The coolest, bravest dude of all time. And turns out most all of that was made up, but it's still like one of my favorite movies. And you can tell from that movie that the stuff about Mel Gibson's probably true, but he really goes full psycho a few times in that movie, and it's just great entertainment.
Yeah. That is a great movie. I rewatched it not long ago, and I was just like, man, they don't make them like this anymore.
It's so good.
Great
revenge movie.
True. You're into that. You like revenge. Who's the person you most want to get revenge on in real life, Jeff? Is there anyone you can think of? Like a bully in high school or something?
Oh, I do have, maybe like
Park ranger.
Joe in high school, who'd always hit me in the nuts.
Dude, come on, Joe.
Look at Jeff now, Joe. Thriving.
I'll help you out with that.
His nuts are working. Kind of. Maybe that's what gave you that hernia problem.
Yeah.
What do you mean, kinda?
Yeah, how do you know? So my favorite, I recently rewatched Pirates of the Caribbean. And listen, Jack is an iconic character. But the first movie, which is the best movie and one of my favorite movies ever, it doesn't work without Jack's insanity counterbalanced with Will Turner being kind of like his normal foil. And I don't know, I'm a big Orlando Bloom guy. Will Turner is essential to the plot of that first movie, and I just think he's great.
It's a good pick.
I love it. I love that movie so much.
All right, I've got a pick and a runner-up as well. My number one pick, it's got to be Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes. It has to be my favorite all-time Bill. That, like, Calvin and Hobbes was such a critical piece of my adolescence, and I still love it to this day. So I'm going to say Bill Watterson, and then my backup is Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York. I think an often overlooked Scorsese movie, but and like a really hateable character, like a bad person, but such a good performance and such a good character. Who's the guy again? What's his name?
Daniel Day.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah.
I mean,
anyway.
It's really in my estimation, the only reason to watch that movie is to watch Daniel Day-Lewis's Bill. I don't care for that movie,
but it kind of goes all over the place.
Yeah.
Our next category.
We forgot about Bill Clinton.
We did forget about
not a big Bill Clinton fan, actually. Not a fan at all. But
well, I just feel
Slick
like
Willie.
mentioning him.
He is a rascal, isn't he?
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to ask you guys, what's the best photograph you think you've ever taken?
I don't want to go first.
I'll go first. So I am not one to take photos. Rarely ever am I pulling out the old camera. I took a picture of a TV I was trying to sell once and posted it online. My TV sold pretty quick. Got me a bunch of money. So probably the most valuable picture I've ever taken. But there's one that for anyone else.
Were you like in the reflection of it, like half naked
with
or
the
something?
Phone. Yeah.
Like only a t-shirt on.
My friend David, I'm staying at his place in Dallas right now. He took a picture of me half naked and sent it into Cold Stone to make an ice cream cake with like a picture on top. You know how they can do that? And I guess they just didn't catch the fact that I didn't have pants on. And
they did it.
Made it.
Yeah, right on the cake. We had it for my birthday. I did take a picture in a restaurant that for anyone else would be like a picture they would take any day and they wouldn't think twice about it. But it's my brother and his daughter, and his daughter's kind of like standing there with her hand on his shoulder. And it's just like really cute, small moment. It was candid. They didn't know I was taking it. And I was like, hey, that was nice. So I sent it to him, and I've since retired from taking photographs.
All right. How many did you take in Borneo again? Like one?
One. one in Borneo, a water monitor.
Oh, that's so great. All right, I can go next. Honestly, I think my favorite photo that I've ever personally taken is of Jeff. And it was on the bear project that he helped me with. And it's him holding two cubs. And they like perfectly outline his face. And like he looks the happiest that a human being has ever looked. And both of these cubs just look like incredibly cute. And it was kind of like my dream photo that I always wanted with cubs. So I'm glad I at least got it with Jeff. And then my runner up is I took a really great photo of an ermine, which is a weasel, jumping through the air with a mouse in its mouth. And it was like the fastest little critter. And I was laying on the ground trying to take that photo and just took hundreds of photos trying to get it. And I finally got it. And that's maybe the most proud I've ever been of a wildlife photo.
You told us about it when it happened. Listeners will remember.
Yeah. It's a good story. Good picture.
I have one from like before I even had like a phone with a really good camera, but it had a camera, and it's in Glacier. It's one of my earlier posts on my Instagram, but there's like a baby mountain goat walking by like a little puddle on the trail. And it was my first time that I ever really like framed a picture like with like a mountain in the backdrop and then this goat with its reflection in the pool. And I think I maybe have taken better ones and have better like cameras now. But I think this was the first time I was like really proud of myself for figuring out how to take a good picture.
You started Instagram a little later, so going back to the start of your feed isn't.
Yeah, I had one that I like deleted and then I started another one.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see it. I like it. Yeah, good reflection, good composure. Nice job, Jeff.
Yeah.
I want you guys to recommend something you liked from the last couple weeks. And there's a reason I want to do this, because there's something that I've been watching that I really like. So go ahead and bring up yours first.
Charlie XCX's new album, Brat. It's incredible. It's the best album of the year so far. Kind of resets it's like, I don't know, she makes pop music like I imagine pop music will sound 10 years from now. It's so cool, so good. It would be probably number one on the charts, especially over in England, if Taylor Swift would stop reissuing versions of her albums all over the place and taking over the number one spot from everyone else.
She does it whenever someone's like about to have a big week too.
She's a legend.
Listen, dude, she's got relationship problems right now. Just lay off of her, all right?
Oh, man.
She's going through it.
We got to let her have a win for once, I guess.
Jeff, you want to do yours?
I'm just going to recommend Sharks.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, this dude loves sharks.
Not for eating, but
of course,
learning about maybe drawing sharks if you want to draw a shark. I got this shark pillow that I really like.
It's a nice pillow.
And there's a movie, Jaws. Go check that one out.
Great movie.
That exact answer, like verbatim, is what I would have given at 7 years old had you asked me this question. All right.
But I support it. I can.
I do too.
I just watched I rewatched the Fishman arc in One Piece, and there's some sharks. Not my favorite arc, but he's got
like
cool,
the Arlong arc.
No, there's a Fishman Island.
Yeah. Oh, you're still a ways away from that. You just got through.
I
Jaya.
have been watching, just so you guys know.
I know.
I'm
so
halfway
proud of
through
you.
Skypiea. Yeah. All right. The other thing that I've been watching and that I keep telling Mike to watch, but he refuses to, and it's driving me crazy, is the 2003 Star Wars Clone Wars series. It's the animated one that was done by Genndy Tartakovsky or whatever his name is. He's the guy that created Dexter's Lab and Primal. Primal's one of my all-time favorite animated series, and so is this Clone Wars series. It's so good. Jeff, we watched it together once, me, you, and Brent. It's like the cartoon one, and I think it's like
I watched them all.
It's high up there. No, it's not the CG one. Like, it's not the Clone Wars series that was like eight seasons. This is the animated one that was done by the guy that did Primal. And
there's only like
really,
3
really
episodes,
good.
right?
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours total, and it's amazing. It's honestly
really
like some of the best Star Wars content out there. So I'm really excited for.
Well,
Mike
have you
to
seen the
someday
newest
give it a
show,
shot.
Acolyte?
I haven't seen Acolyte. I don't think I've got to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just don't think you should say it's one
Fair
of the
enough.
best till you see that.
Yeah, you have to watch every piece of Star Wars content.
I've watched most of it. I mean, let's be honest. All right. Our next category is one of my favorites, where Mike and Jeff paying attention. So, for this week,
Which part?
what?
Which part?
Which part were you? The entire thing.
Okay, no.
I got some really cool rocks in Yellowstone. I got
How
some
many can you
fossilized,
put in your mouth?
quite a few.
What do they taste like?
I got fossilized shark teeth. I got plesiosaur teeth. I got some really cool geodes, a few other things. I'm going to have a pile, and whoever wins gets to pick one from this pile of rocks.
Oh,
and they
sweet.
can keep it.
Oh, nice.
All right. So first question, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. Jeff, what's the name of the campground where I got the video of the moose and the bear?
Soda Butt.
Close
Soda
enough.
Butte.
Soda Butte Campground. 1 point, Jeff.
It doesn't
Mike.
even have to get the number of the campsite. Crazy.
No.
I can
These
get
are
it.
we start with these
20,
What number?
26.
Good job. All right. Should I give him another
Michael
point, Mike?
Jordan's number.
Yeah, 2 points. Yeah.
He loses a point for saying Michael Jordan's number.
Okay, back to one then.
Mike, what animal was Bill originally headed out to photograph?
Oh, in Bozeman. I don't know, like a horse.
Wrong.
Wait, bison.
Wrong.
Shoot,
Wrong.
grizzly bear.
Jeff, do you want to steal?
Yeah, elk.
Elk. Correct. 2-0, Jeff.
Dude.
Jeff, what city in Montana has galleries with Bill's photos?
Great Falls.
Great Falls. 3-0, Jeff. All right.
What?
Mike, what was Bill's other job outside of photography?
Kiss that plesiosaurus tooth goodbye. I don't know, car mechanic.
Correct. 3-1.
On the board, baby.
Jeff, Bill had a disability that didn't really slow him down, though. What was it?
Diabetes.
Incorrect. Mike, you want to steal?
Blind in one eye.
Correct.
He masturbated, but
3-2.
not that much.
Mike, you got a chance to tie it up here.
Edge.
Just enough to get rid of one eye.
Right.
Dude, my dad used to say, like, if I was like scratching my
know.
groin or something, he'd be like, "You're gonna go blind down there."
Blind.
Yeah, or-
Down there.
Down
What?
there.
not down there. Sorry. You guys don't have eyesight out of your dick.
I was,
All right, Mike. What
I always knew
turnout?
something was different about me.
And I don't need the full name for this. I'm gonna count partial. What turnout did they find Bill's car in?
Oh, Hayden, you should turn out.
No, you should get this because we joked about it quite a bit.
Really?
Can I steal?
Yeah.
Otter
steal.
Creek.
Otter Creek.
Dang it.
Okay, Jeff, you got a chance to do an insurmountable lead here until we get to the bonus question.
Right.
What
Yeah.
place in Montana was Bill originally supposed to go to photograph elk?
I don't know. It was like by Bozeman, but I don't know the name.
Mike, can you steal
Every
this?
time you said that, I thought of Clive Barker. It's Clyde Park.
Clyde Park, correct. 3-4.
Who's Clyde
I think.
Barker?
He did like Hellraiser, some other
Yeah.
stuff. Mike,
Is he
you can tie it
related
up
to
here.
Bob Barker?
Probably.
He's not related to Bob Barker. What kind of car did Bill drive, Mike?
Truck.
It wasn't a truck.
Really? What?
Yeah.
What kind
Jeff,
of car
do
was
you
it
remember?
then, Jeff?
Dad had this car at one point.
Oldsmobile?
Nope.
Or
A Chevy Impala.
mm.
All right. And then the bonus question, lightning round. Whoever wins this, Gryffindor rules, wins it all.
Yes.
Uh,
You're like Dumbledore.
whoever says it first wins. What's the number of the bear?
59.
Ooh, Mike wins.
Because it's only 10 away from 69. I'll break the plesiosaur tooth in half and we can share, Jeff.
I got one for both of you guys. So you just get to pick first. But yeah. You both
Jeff.
get it. Everyone gets a tooth.
I knew the number. I just froze.
we all get teeth.
Froze.
You get a tooth, and you get a tooth. All right.
I was thinking Michael Jordan's number still.
26.
Yeah.
Next category, we're going to get to our listener questions now. I'm going to do a couple patron ones. Everyone, I'm trying to get caught up. I swear I am. All three of us. I shouldn't say I do a lot of them because a lot of them are animal questions, but all three of us will get in there and answer questions. We're trying to get caught up, and we will get there.
Yeah. I've been really bad at responding to people in general.
We've been
sometimes
gone a lot.
I just have.
It's hard.
You know, I've been open about it. Sometimes I have depression, and just like putting on clothes is hard. I'm not going to respond to people. You know.
You don't want to respond to them naked.
Yeah.
That's awkward. Yeah, I get it.
We all get it. We've all been there. We all get depressed sometimes. I was depressed not long ago. All right. On to our next question.
It's Men's Health Month, you know?
It is.
We got to be... Mike, you depressed at all?
Yeah. I rarely have clothes on these days.
It's also Pride Month. Hey, congrats to all of our LGBTQ listeners.
The gays.
You know?
The gays. Yeah. I'm actually doing a little bit of a thing about that in my subscription episode coming up.
Oh, cool. Yeah. In all seriousness, though, like... We think it's cool to be celebrating some big victories for that community.
Hell yeah.
And if you don't think that's cool and it makes you mad, maybe just like think about why that makes you mad. Because it's kind of crazy to get mad that people are celebrating being accepted. So anyway. All right, let's get into some questions here. This one's from Kim. Kim really wanted to know a little bit more about spraying bear spray in the wind. And Kim is so concerned about this that they've been having like some nightmares and stuff. So I do just want to get into this for Kim's sake.
Wow.
Yeah, got to get
that. About like spraying themselves with bear spray?
Yeah, I think so. Just bear spray in general.
She's like wakes up in like a deep sweat, like, oh, I didn't get sprayed.
This opens the door for a lot of bad questions, though. People are going to be like, I keep having nightmares about what should I do in Yellowstone when I go there in the summer, Wes. I have nightmares.
Can you plan my trip for me, please?
Yeah.
No, but really, if you have a strong wind blowing right at you, it can really affect the way that your spray works. It can blow it back at you. The thing that I always just say, though, is you should still try and use it, because being mauled by a bear is much worse than getting bear spray blown back up at your face. It does really decrease the distance at which it works, and a wind behind you really increases that distance. So you do want to keep that in mind. And if the wind was really coming at me hard, I probably wouldn't spray the bear until it's within like 15 feet. And typically I'd start at like 30. So we've talked about this before, but the point with bear spray is that you're putting it in between you and the bear has to cross through it to get to you. So it's just putting it out there, getting it in between you and the bear at some point is the most important part. If you're that unlucky and the wind's coming at you that hard, the bear still might make contact with you, but it's still going to hit that spray, and it's still probably going to stop it from really mauling you. So I would still spray it.
Like it's powerful would never stop spray. It'll still like it might get you a little bit, but it'll still keep you from a bear.
Yeah. So still spray it. That's the main thing. All right.
And if
this one's from Gage.
Keep having nightmares, we've done all we can for you.
Maybe
I have them too.
Maybe you gotta just like go spray some in the air above you and let it hit you, and like it'll suck, but it's like you'll learn that you don't need to have nightmares about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't actually condone that, but if you need to do it, go do it. All right. This one's from Gage. Gage says, I have a question for you guys. If you could talk to any of the people who have passed away from any of your animal attack stories, who would it be and what would you guys say? I think for me, it would either be Brigida Friedenhagen, because she was killed in the backcountry in Yellowstone and he'd want to know what happened. Or I would tell Ray Kitchen that he saved Kelly McConnell's life and that he was a hero, which is very sweet. That's curious what you guys would think. Keep up the good work. I had a hard time thinking of a better one than the Ray Kitchen one.
Yeah.
Because that would be really nice just to tell him, hey, you saved people's lives. I'd probably want to talk to that little dingo baby and like be like, hey,
to the baby.
Did your mom kill you?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I know that the dingo got it, but yeah, talking to a baby would kind of be a wasted
Just like tell him
wish.
like, hey, just so you know, you ruined your mom's life by dying.
I don't know. Do you guys have a good answer for that?
I was thinking about any of the shark victims in the river during the attacks that inspired Jaws.
1916.
Especially the guy who was like a tailor or something, the hero of the town, the big shot.
What was his name?
Lester was the kid. That was
Lester's
the small
the
boy.
kid.
Yeah.
Shoot. Yeah, I can't.
I don't know
remember
what
his
I
name.
would talk to them about, but I'd be like, "Hey, listen, your story goes on to inspire maybe the best movie ever made. So thanks for your sacrifice." That's terrible. I don't know. That's bad. I don't want to say that.
You're just gonna thank him for the movie's Jaws.
That's awful. But I would want to talk to them and just be like, you tried, man. You did your best. You sound like an awesome guy.
Yeah, Lester Stillwell. That was the kid.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
like the tiger at San Francisco Zoo killed that guy. It's like, hey, you saved your friends because he got killed trying to like help his brother, I think, right, or his friend.
Mm-hmm.
So like tell that kid like, hey, good job saving your friends.
Yeah, I like those answers. All right. This one's from Christian. Christian says, hey guys, in a recent episode, you mentioned alligators can take some injury while hunting prey. And in the past, you've mentioned big cats really can't take much injury or else they can't hunt. What animals do you think can take the most injury and be the least affected by it? Love the podcast. Thank you. Like worms?
I was thinking geckos can just have their tail ripped off and grow it back, but worms is even better.
Cut a worm in half and it just turns into two
You
worms.
get two of them. It's awesome.
It's hard to beat that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Ants, I feel like a lot of times you squish them and they just pop right back up like nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably didn't squish them if you did that.
I mean, sometimes though, if you like lightly squish one and then it'll like walk in circles for like a minute or two and then it just kind of pops itself back into a normal ant.
Yeah. No, I think you're on.
You guys don't know what I'm talking about?
No, I
When
do.
you were
I know what
kids,
you're
you
talking
wouldn't
about. Yeah.
Squish ants for fun.
I don't squish them anymore, but
Right,
Right.
but you have.
No, I know what you're saying. And when you think about it, that's like a skyscraper falling on that ant, and then it like still wanders away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was a little
right.
kid, that's like what I did for fun. It's just saw how much I could like squish an ant.
I got
Maybe it's
one
a
more
good
from
thing
Carrie.
kids do all have smartphones now.
That's all. That's it for our patron questions. Jeff, do you have any listener questions you want to do?
Sure. Yes. I mean, yes. All right. Glenifer asks, can Mike please explain his positive rating for Matrix 4? Super confused.
I'm confused on that too.
Did
It's a
I?
trash movie.
It's a hard one to defend, and I'm not
You
going
like
to
that movie,
all the
though, you
way.
do.
But I do think it was very deliberately a middle finger to the studio because it was just one of the Wachowskis this time. She intentionally sabotaged basically the entire process. And I respect it on that level if indeed that is how it happened. But I saw it once and I was like, hey, okay, I can kind of respect that. But maybe it's just a bad movie and it wasn't intentional at all.
I'll say when you saw it, you were like pretty stoked on it. And I was like, oh, sick. A good new Matrix movie. And then I saw it and I was like, this is bad. This is a bad movie. Yeah.
I'll have to
Mike's
watch it again. We'll
shifting in his
revisit
seat
this
right now.
question later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I remember
feel like
being
this
positive.
is actually the most negative I've ever heard you be on it.
Okay.
Agreed.
Moose Heart Beads asks, who do you think is the hottest TV/movie villain? I mean, Sandra Bullock in Dusk Till Dawn.
You mean Salma Hayek?
Salma.
Or Salma Hayek, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
that's a good
when
pick.
Daenerys goes bad
Yeah.
in Game of
Daenerys.
Thrones.
James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano. He's pretty hot
Get out of here.
in a weird way. I honestly think he kind of is.
What?
Really?
I don't know. There's something about him. There's a magnetism to him.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
I'm not going to
But
yuck on
I-
someone else's yum.
I'm going to echo your Selma Hayek one. She's
Oh,
like,
you know
that's
who's
about as hot as anyone's ever been.
What's his name? Stinger in The Wire.
Oh yeah, Idris Elba. Yeah, Stringer Bell.
Yeah, he's a good-looking dude. I can't
Mike,
think
you
of
got
one.
an answer for that?
I'm sure there's a million that's just beyond the grasp of my brain.
What about in One Piece? Who's the hottest?
Yeah, isn't there like
villain?
some like half moose in One Piece or something
sure.
that you think is hot? Yeah.
Jafar?
No, not hot.
Jafar in Aladdin?
Sure. I mean,
When
if
he's the old
we're
guy.
gonna allow Gandolfini, you gotta let me have Jafar.
I push back on Gandolfini too, but
Right.
He's hot. I don't know how to explain it.
Mesothelioma.
Mesopelagic mermaids ask Wes's opinion on bear-shaped honey bottles.
Love them. Sometimes I have a
Me
hard time
too.
throwing them away because I love them so much.
It's a good
big
idea.
fan.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
All right, last one. Meg Elizabeth wants to know, what are Jeff and Mike's ideal type of lady?
Ooh,
I might know some people.
a spicy question.
Yeah, one that is so independent that she forgets I exist sometimes, I think would be mine.
It's a great answer. Jeff? How
So
about
your
you?
personality that just there's no interaction.
Yeah.
That AI girl from Blade Runner.
I'd say just like cute girls.
Nice.
Cute. Yeah. You're onto something there.
Easy to please.
Cute women.
Can I answer? Mine is my girlfriend, Jessie.
Ooh,
What
nice.
about her?
Score big points.
Dark
she's
hair?
pretty, she's interesting. She is like fun. She's funny to be around. And she's fine with me living my life. She doesn't need me to like do her thing all the time, which is great. All right.
Well, that's nice. She just got roasted in our comments yesterday.
Yeah, but you know, everyone
Did
gets
she?
roasted in our comments from time
Yeah.
to time.
What the heck?
I got
What'd
a
she
whole
ever do?
email.
Someone was tired of guests, but whatever. Her
Oh,
guest episode
well.
was really fun. Okay, we're going to move on really quickly to conservation. I brought this up a few times in the past, but we really don't see many more relocations or translocations with grizzly bears. And that's kind of something we can celebrate because we're at a point where those bears, instead of just being moved, can be removed from the population, which I know sounds terrible, but it's making grizzly bears as a species much more accepted. When you get rid of those problem animals, people tend to have a better view of the animal as a whole. And that's really great for their population, for the species as a whole. And translocations aren't really necessary anymore because we used to have so few bears that we couldn't afford to lose any of them, that we would just move them around and they still cause problems. And now there's a lot of bears in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. There's over 1,000 bears in that ecosystem. There's over 1,000 in the northern continental divide. And those bears are spreading. Those populations are getting bigger. So we don't really have to use those management tools anymore. And that's actually, in a weird way, a success story.
How are they going to do the new bear population they want in the Cascades in Washington?
They're taking some bears probably either from Montana or Canada, and they're flying them out there. I believe they're going to do it via helicopter was what I last heard, but they might just drive them out there in traps too, and they'll release them and hope that they mate and hope that they spread. So it'll be a number of male bears and a number of female bears, and the hope is just that they stay there. That's like far enough from any other bear populations that it's likely they'll stay in the same area. But this is kind of unprecedented. It's not something that's been done with grizzlies, really. So it'll be interesting to see it unfold.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Me too. I was just helping
if-
with it.
Yeah, I think ideally they do it with pandas there.
Yeah, that would be cool too. They
Because
wouldn't do
that'd
very
just
well.
be awesome. But
We'd have pandas for
you
about
probably
a
have
month.
to do it in like Hawaii, huh?
Yeah, somewhere with bamboo. Yep. All right. And then very quickly, me and Jeff, this is a 10-claw animal for both of us. This is like my gold medal winner 10-claw animal. Mike, where are you at on grizzly bears?
9.
9. All right.
9 feels right.
I'll accept it.
I like
still
them.
want you to get to a 10 at some point. But
I don't think they ever will.
all right, we'll see. We'll see if we
Are
can
they
make
your
that happen.
favorite right now, Wes?
Yeah, they are. Yep. Especially after this moose thing that happened. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. This has been a fun episode to research and share.
No problem, dude. I'll listen anytime.
Thanks, man. We should just keep this going then.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this before. We're starting to produce more episodes, free episodes. So look forward to that. The format of those episodes might be different from what you guys are used to, but they're all going to be really fun. Jeff just did a fun Borneo one. We've got more interviews coming up. We've got more movie reviews. And then, of course, like more attack stories, too. That's our bread and butter. It's what we're going to stick to. But we're just finding ways to give you guys a lot more fun content. And then our patron and subscriber episodes are going to keep on coming, too. So we'll have 2 of those. And we love our subscriber community. They're the ones that have gotten us this far. So if you're interested in joining that community, head over to our Apple Grizz Club or our Patreon.
And also, we should have some new merch pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. And we're pretty excited about it.
It's looking cool.
And a potential new trip in the works, too, that would be going to Indiana, with tigers and snow leopards. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It would be with Naturalist Journeys, who I guide with, but Jeff and Mike would be along on that trip, and it'd be pretty amazing. So we're trying to put
Indiana
that together
food's
as well.
pretty spicy, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like got curry and stuff, I think.
Fried pickles. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Love you.
Love you.